Hello, beautiful people. Today is Tuesday, February 15th, and you don't have to make it a great day because today is already great. Do you want to know why? Because you're about to spend 5 minutes using word and wisdom to discover, develop, and deploy your unique greatness so that you can change the world. So lean in. This is the Daily Devo. Hello, beautiful people. Today is Tuesday, February 15th, and I'm so excited that you all are here for another episode of the Daily Devo. Yesterday we introduced someone to you, and some of you might, maybe for the first time, someone by the name of Saul. Now, Saul is the precursor to Paul. Now, Paul is the version that many of us are aware of because he authored so much of the New Testament. We see so many letters from Paul to different churches, like the church at Philippi. He writes letters to the Galatians. He writes letters to the Colossians. He continually writes letters to his apprentices. He writes letters like 1st and 2nd Timothy. There are so many things that we can read from Paul, but we have to understand Paul's personal heritage of being Saul. And that's what we're going to look at this week, because often as we're planning our ways, we can be living out of something that we think is our purpose, but we've not yet discovered our Paul. And that's exactly what was happening for Saul. Now, we're looking at Acts chapter 9 this week. Now, I want you to look at what happens here to Saul. Okay, Saul is on his way to a particular place called Damascus. Now, Damascus was a place where he was going in order to do what he thought his purpose was. He thought his purpose was to persecute, to condemn Christians because they were breaking the law. They were breaking Jewish custom and law. They were blasphemers. They were heretics. They did not know the truth. And Paul, formerly known as Saul, so Saul thought it was his purpose to persecute Christians. And he's on his way to do just that. But remember what we talked about last week. We talked about how we plan our ways, but God directs our steps. So as Saul is on his way to do what he thought he was planned to do, God redirects his steps. How does God do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let's look at Acts chapter 9, and we're going to look at verses 3, 4, and 5. Now, on his way to Damascus, there's this bright light that knocks Paul off of his horse, and he's on the ground and his eyes are closed, and he has this moment where he hears a voice. And here's what happens. Verse number 3, as he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" Verse 5, "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. Family, this question that Saul asks to the voice that he hears after having been knocked off of his horse is a question that I think we all have to ask. Because if we're going to manage divine disruption properly, we're going to have to know when disruptions aren't from God. This question is important because when he understands who is behind all of this disruption, when he understands who's behind something that's diverting him from his path. See, there's a difference between a distraction and a disruption. Distractions are something we have to work through, and we work through that with focus, and we understand that we have to put certain things aside so that we can accomplish our task. But there are some times where God is not trying to distract you, but God is using certain things to disrupt you. And when certain things keep happening that disrupt a particular course of action, we have to pause and ask of the disruption and ask of God, "Who are you?" This is a question we have to ask, family. Who are you? What is really happening here? You see, he understood something different about this encounter. This wasn't just some random act, but this was something divine. So Saul takes a moment to say, who are you? And this week, I want to lean into prayer. I want us here on the Daily Devo to begin to pray with one another and for one another. And today, my prayer for you is that whatever is happening around your life, whatever you feel is disrupting your plans, whatever you think might be a distraction that you're trying to push through, but it just keeps coming back. I want us to take a pause, and I want us to pray and ask God, who are you? What's truly happening here? What's really going on here? And when we can pause to ask the question, who are you? We give room for God to respond to us as Jesus responded to Paul. I am God. The response that Saul got was, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But what if God wants to respond to you today and say, I am God, whom you are ignoring. I am God, whom you think is a distraction. I am God who's trying to redirect you to a better version of yourself. I am God. I am the one. Just leave room for this disruption. I know you're on your way to Damascus, but is there enough room for divine disruption on your way to Damascus? Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about how Saul ends up making it to Damascus. But when he gets there, when he gets to Damascus, he has an entirely different disposition. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But before tomorrow hits, I just want to pray and ask God, show us who you are. Show us where you are behind the disruptions of our life. Show us what you're trying to redirect us to. We've planned our steps to our personal Damascus. But now, God, we ask you to show us where you might be disrupting our plans so that you can introduce us to the purposed version of ourselves. Family, that's been another episode of the Daily Devo. Remember, before tomorrow hits, share the Daily Devo with someone. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good day.